Welcome to the top 25 stories of 2025 from Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we'll tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
2025 has been one of the most dramatic years for the LGBTQ community. Hotspots Magazine Happening Out television network shared more than 2,500 stories about and for our LGBTQ community. We don't know what 2026 will bring, so we thought we would finish our year by looking back. Of those 2,500 stories, let's look at the top 25 stories of 25. This curated list is drawn from Queer News Tonight, The FayWhat Show, Queer God Squad, and Hotspots Magazine. This was what was important to all of us in 25 of 2025. Let's queer up the top stories of the year. This is number 22 of 2025. Trump-controlled Kennedy Center cancels all WorldPride events. We discussed this story on April 29th. We recall how WorldPride 2025 hit a major roadblock when key events were moved from the Kennedy Center after sweeping changes and new restrictions under President Donald Trump. Canceled programs, protests, and sponsor withdrawals reshaped the festival's plans, but organizers affirmed that Pride would continue downtown.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Vaughn Biggs, and let's queer up politics. Trump's Kennedy Center cancels all WorldPride events just weeks before start. WorldPride 2025 has hit a major roadblock just weeks before kickoff. Organizers are forced to move several key LGBTQ events out of the Kennedy Center or the Performing Arts. Many are saying it is due to a politically motivated cultural purge led by President Donald Trump. Trump's sweeping changes at the Kennedy Center began early this year, when he fired President Deborah Rutter, dissolved the bipartisan board, and installed loyalists, including Second Lady Usha Vance and longtime operative Dan Scavino. He then appointed himself chairman and created a new executive director role for Richard Grenell, a MAGA loyalist with no arts administration experience. In a February Truth Social post, Trump vowed, quote, "No more drag shows or other anti-American propaganda," end quote, claiming to return to the so-called, quote, "golden age of American arts and culture," end quote. Now, WorldPride LGBTQ plus programs like the AIDS Memorial Quilt Display, a drag story hour, and Pride concerts have been scrubbed from the Kennedy Center calendar. The Capital Pride Alliance confirmed the programming will now relocate to downtown D.C. Other events like the International Pride Orchestra concert and the National Symphony Orchestra Pride collaboration were also abruptly canceled or removed without explanation. Protests have erupted outside the Kennedy Center, and several artists, including Issa Rae, have pulled out. Queer organizers and sponsors have voiced concerns. The EGAL Canada withdrawing and Booz Allen Hamilton cutting financial support, Capital Pride Alliance and international governments have issued warnings about the Trump administration's new rules requiring all visa applicants to declare their sex assigned at birth and banning ex-gender passports. Still, worldwide Pride will go on. While President Trump's vision of what he called, quote, "a golden age of American arts and culture," and, quote, "no more drag shows or other anti-American propaganda," end quote, history reveals that drag has been a vital part of American arts and culture for centuries, enriching its diversity. From its early roots in ancient Greece to Japan to Shakespearean theater, drag has evolved through vaudeville in the early 20th century, the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s and 1930s, especially within the Black and Latinx community, LGBTQ plus communities, the Stonewall Uprising and drag revolution of the 1969, and into the modern era with shows like RuPaul Drag Race, bringing drag culture into the mainstream. To our community, I say, we have proven we will not be erased. And that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. And, important. The world I mean, it's World Pride, for goodness sakes. You know, the world is looking at America, and we're losing our identity, and it's really a shame. You know, next World Pride certainly isn't going to be in the United States. I mean, these big international events are going to start happening elsewhere,
Right.
and it's really a shame. I just keep shaking my head at so many things that, you know, you're talking about arts and culture. First of all, arts and culture bring in billions of dollars to communities around the country, far more than, you know, what Trump is cutting. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to not recognize this.
Yeah, I mean, I've attended World Pride in Spain and in New York, which was the 50th anniversary for Stonewall, and to see the international community that ascends on these cities and brings together, you know, diverse people, allies of our community. I mean, I would say I was most impressed, again, being in Spain for World Pride in Madrid. The city, it was an LGBTQ event, but it wasn't. It was a street festival for the city. There were people with babies on the street with their kids watching the parade. I mean, it was such a family event, and it's really sad that, you know, in America, where we stand for or what our country has stood for, to be the place that is really kind of, you know, taking a dump on World Pride by our president. It's unfortunate that DC got to host it this year. I mean, it's a confluence of events that's really sad. What I'm most upset about, though, is I think, you know, I watched a story last night. You know, they're trying to cancel the Pride event in Hungary under another wannabe dictator, Viktor Orban, and they're protesting, I believe, once a week against the attempt to cancel Pride. And, you know, I hope we see that this World Pride event has a lot of protest in it, because again, it is what Pride is about. But I hope we see more protests. I hope we see protests at the Kennedy Center.
They're already they're there already. It's happening already.
You know, I just hope that if you can catch the story, Alex Wagner did it last night about the protests in Hungary about Pride. I think our community needs to take note of that, because I do still feel like there's a lot of complacency, like, oh, it's not that bad yet.
Right.
And look at this event of World Pride, you know, kicking us out of the Kennedy Center, you know, for these iconic performances that people have paid money already to come to the United States or come to Washington, D.C. to attend, and may have never even been to the Kennedy Center before and had their opportunity to go, and now, you know, the events are canceled.
Right, yeah.
I mean, another thing, right, so this gives parallels to a certain period of time, right? You know, on October 5th, 1938, right, you know, Nazi leaders in Berlin, you know, they stamped a J, you know, on the Jewish community, on members of the Jewish community. It's the same thing with the passports right now with the members of the trans community. You know, they also did that with theater, right? So on November 9th through the 10th, right, in 1938, you know, the Nazi legislation barred Jews from public schools, cinemas, theaters, and sports facilities. So we're right now into a period of history where things are repeating themselves, and I mean, it's scary, right? It's not just members, like people like, oh, but it's just the trans community. No, we're a community.
And so what if it is just the trans community? It's human beings, and you know, I think one of the things that we as a community have done, or at least, you know, I don't just march for LGBT. I march for whoever needs to be marched for. I'm sorry, I know I kind of interrupted you, but, you know, we need to stand up for everybody who is being hurt right now, who is marginalized, because just as in the case of the rabbi who wrote the poem, first they came for the Unionists, and and then they came for me, and there was no one left.
Right.
So, we need to have solidarity. And there was a sign at one of the marches I went to. It said, "They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds." So I know no one ever gave us anything in the first place. We fought for every right that we have achieved. We'll do it again.
Yep.
And I mean, there's no doubt we'll do it again.
Let's queer up the top stories of the year. This is number 21 of 2025. Utah teacher shares creative resistance to anti-LGBTQ+ law. We shared this story on May 7th. We recall Utah's new law banning LGBTQ flags in schools, and one teacher who refused to let support disappear. John Arthur shared how he quietly uplifted queer students, even when policy tried to silence him. The law targets rainbow flags, but his message endured. Support always finds a way.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Julio Capó, and let's queer up the USA view. Utah teacher shares creative resistance to anti-LGBTQ law. In Utah, as a new law banning LGBTQ flags in schools takes effect, one teacher is speaking out and reminding us that queer support finds a way. John Arthur, a teacher in Utah, shared a powerful story on Threads describing how he's supported queer students over the years, even when the law tried to silence him.
Hey friends, this Wednesday, Utah will become the first state to ban pride flags in all schools and government buildings. But before it does, I'd like to tell you a story. When I was named Utah's Teacher of the Year in 2021, people started noticing in pictures that I always carry a lot of pens in my pocket. Well, way back in my first year of teaching, I was reading The Wizard of Oz in class, and the words gay and queer came up in the book. Some students started laughing, and I was about to say something when my principal, who was observing in the room at the time, shook her head no. After the lesson, she told me that there was a law that prohibited me from discussing anything that had to do with gay or queer identities in class for fear that I might be promoting an alternative lifestyle. Now, I had a student in my class who was clearly gay, and he reacted when the other kids laughed. I asked if there was anything I could do to let him know I had his back. Wear a pin, hang a flag, anything to show this kid that he had my love and support. She said no. It's against the law. Late in the night, I realized I'm a teacher. I use pens and highlighters and markers every day. No one could give me a hard time for wearing a bunch of pens in my pocket. So I came to school the next day with a rainbowish assortment ready to go, and most people made nothing of it. But my boy knew. He looked at me and he knew I was flying a flag just for him. Thankfully, that terrible law was eventually defeated in court, but some legislators now want to take us back.
If this doesn't fix a lot of those problems, and we are seeing teachers that are starting to push, pins and stickers and banners, it'll be really easy to go back next year and just make a more blanket ban on other items if we can't get this done through just the flag.
Trevor Lee, I promise, brother, you're wasting your time. Bigotry will never outpace our creativity. The only way to get rid of rainbow flags and all the rest is to make them unnecessary. When all our kids, LGBTQ youth included, get to walk into our classrooms and find themselves celebrated in the books they read, the histories they study, and the stories we tell, then teachers won't need to fly rainbow flags for them anymore. Until then, you can count on teachers continuing to lovingly fight for liberty and justice for all.
As he mentioned, that earlier law was repealed in 2017, but starting today, Utah has banned LGBTQ flags in all government buildings, including schools. Though presented as a ban on all unsanctioned flags, the intent has been clear. Rainbow flags are the target. But Arthur is a powerful reminder that even in silence, support can speak volumes. Queer News Tonight is reminded by John Arthur that teachers are the heart and inspiration of America. I love this story, and as a teacher, I have to say I understand too the kind of way that students, all of us can resonate as students, as teachers, as spaces that the way that it feels to feel acknowledged and validated in a space where you feel vulnerable and feel at risk, and that is these kind of, it's so powerful when he says like his student knew and understood. we've all been in that space where we've seen that happen. Classrooms are not only the only space that could happen in church, that can happen in any space that we get together, right? But it is a powerful and necessary space and a necessary moment and gesture to say, like, you are welcome here too. And to me, I just read the story as one of resilience, of queer resilience, the ways that we find when we are silenced, we only get louder, and we find new ways to share our stories and to make sure that we are felt, that we build community and make ourselves feel safe.
we reinvent how we tell our message sometimes. Sometimes the conventional way doesn't work, so we find a way around it. It's so important for that.
Yeah, I was born shortly after the earth cooled, and so I remember coded language, we in movies and television, songs, and hanky codes, and the way you dress, and the way parts of town, we had lots of codes. We knew how to communicate. We knew how to get to each other and support each other and affirm each other. And so we got this. I mean, you make it difficult for us, but you're not going to give it. And I bristle. I just go into a blind rage when I hear it, promoting lifestyles. You can't promote. They're denying science. They're denying people's personal stories. They act like this is some gang you can join. Like, you could just join the queer club and then, and then you made a choice. First of all, that'd be a fabulous choice if you could make it. But people are sexuality is innate, and gender identity is varied, and so you're not promoting anything other than tolerance. The only thing you're promoting is don't be mean to people who are different. The only thing you're promoting is life-saving people who feel like they shouldn't even exist. And so, and for all those people who think religion is the reason that you should be, there's a little verse, and the prophet Ezekiel, who has a vision of God. It's in the first chapter. And the vision he has of God, he said, it's like the bow in the sky that appears after the rain. That one of the biblical images for divinity is the rainbow. And the rainbow, what is a rainbow? It's just light reflected and refracted through water droplets. It's light. People are scared of the light, but remember, you are the light.
I love that.
Like, how do I follow that?
I know. It's a ditto. What he said.
No, but I think this is a beautiful story how teachers are, literally the fabric of America. And, as I was watching that video, I was getting a little teary-eyed because I remember growing up as that little, gay boy in school and knowing that I was different, but not knowing what gay was. And I was thinking back to my teachers that I had, and, did they show any signs of making sure that I was safe? And that I was thinking, I just went through my whole history in my mind of all the teachers that I had and all the experiences I've had, and I can literally think of a couple instances where my teachers were very inclusive and very welcoming, and I thank them, for that now, that I never realized that before. And, what a simple and creative way, with markers and pens,
right?
Just to be able to show that. I think that it is very genius. So, congratulations and kudos to you.
Let's queer up the top stories of the year. This is number 20 of 2025. Queer God Squad calls for queer community to resist fascism. We shared this story on May 4th. On the Queer God Squad, our hosts reviewed President Trump's first 100 days, noting rapid and controversial actions that disrupted alliances, prompted judicial pushback, and raised concerns across education, civil rights, and public health. The squad urged viewers to stay informed and engaged in defending democratic norms.
Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Wednesday, May 14th. I am Bishop Darrell Watkins, the Senior Minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. With me today are Bishop Robert Griffin, Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell, and Reverend Kevin Tisdall. We are the Queer God Squad. Visit sunshinecathedral.org to learn more about our progressive faith community and how you can be a part of it. Queer God Squad was created by Hotspots Happening Out to support our mission to explore the value of faith in the LGBTQ community. There's no streaming TV show like this in the entire world. In 2025, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of Hotspots Magazine, the 5th anniversary of Queer News Tonight, with nearly 10,000 stories and 10 million views in 2024. We will produce the 25th anniversary of the Stonewall Pride Parade and Festival on June 14th, Pride Fest Diversity Pride in August, and Pride Fort Lauderdale next February. We are the largest nonprofit LGBTQ media organization in America, and we encourage you to support our mission to inform, entertain, and educate our community and allies.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral Perspective. Today, Queer God Squad calls for a queer community to resist fascism. It may seem like Donald J. Trump has been in charge for decades, but May 1st marked only his 100th day. It may prove to be a very long 3 2/3 years ahead. One of the reasons it seems like forever is because, unlike his first term, where golfing and tweeting and trying to discredit subject matter experts on everything from national security to public health to human rights, this time around he's been unbelievably busy. And he's achieved several things, even the Queer God Squad must admit.
Borrowing from economist and Clinton cabinet member Robert Reich, we can remind you that in the first quarter of the year, and some change, Trump has managed to insult every major U.S. ally, panic the stock market, and watch prices soar even though the price of eggs was supposedly very important to his base. But that's not nearly all he has accomplished.
He has inspired, or some would say compelled, federal judges, Democrat and Republican, in over 120 cases to try to stop some of its appalling activities. He has ignored, defied, or appealed almost all judiciary orders. He's even arrested a federal judge who tried to hear a case involving an undocumented defendant.
Recently, darling of the Federalist Society Judge Harvey Wilkinson III, a Reagan appointee, issued a scathing rebuke of Trumpian tactics, such as trying to incarcerate U.S. citizens in foreign prisons without legal due process. And not only does Trump want to do that, he has done that. Last month, ICE deported 3 children who are U.S. citizens aged 2, 4, and 7 when their mothers were deported. One of the children has stage 4 cancer. He was removed from his home and his medical care without consultation with his doctors.
But don't think that is all Mr. Trump has achieved in a pretty short time. He's attacked universities, insisting that the U.S. government should be able to dictate their hiring and curricular choices. He's attacked journalists, law firms, scientists and researchers, libraries, museums, and even civil service professionals. Basically, where there have been checks and balances, watchdogs, human rights defenders, or intellectual rigor, he has tried to dismantle their structure or intimidate their leaders.
Trump has even told the Justice Department to investigate Act Blue, the platform that fundraises for most of the Democratic candidates and the issues on which Democrats tend to campaign. Using government resources to intimidate a major fundraising apparatus of the other party is a move one might think too despicable, even for him. Apparently not.
Tariffs, which historically have never been good for our country, and his attacks on the top leader of the Federal Reserve have caused global chaos, which has already united most of Europe in seeking a future that does not depend on Washington's goodwill and has already weakened the U.S. dollar. Some countries are considering no longer tying their currency to ours, which will weaken us further.
Oh, funding for treatment and research for major diseases and hotlines for youth in crisis have also been decimated.
And to add to his daunting list of achievements, he has scored the lowest approval rating of any president in the first 100 days in the last 70 years.
Over 400 university presidents have issued a letter opposing, and I'm quoting, the unprecedented government overreach and political interference now endangering American higher education, end quote. Hundreds of law firms have joined a friend of the court brief in support of law firm Perkins Coie's appeal of the regime's demands.
Dr. Reich says America's religious leaders have a moral obligation to speak out. The Queer God Squad agrees.
Neither courts, nor economic crises, nor global derision, nor embarrassingly low public approval has even slowed Trump down. Like we said, he's been busy. He's been getting things done. And if he continues getting these sorts of things done, we're going to be in real trouble very soon. It may be naive to suppose that we aren't already.
The Queer God Squad begs you to stay informed about your government and the consequences of its behavior. And please don't get your information from a network that has admitted it lies and can do so because they consider themselves entertainment rather than real journalism. Get your news from a variety of respectable sources. Give what you can to good causes, because with so much difficulty inflicted on us and government money to help drying up, we are simply going to have to care for one another. It may not be enough, but we need to do all we can to protect one another from the cruelty of an aspiring despot.
If you believe in prayer, then do pray, and then become the answers to those prayers. Show up at a protest, write a letter to the editor, post on social media, call your representatives, and for God's sakes, vote in every single election from this moment on. Municipal, county, state, national, special elections, vote in every single one. Over 2/3 of white evangelical voters still say Trump is their guy, and they approve of his work to date. If we cannot persuade them to embrace empathy, compassion, and fairness, then maybe we can outvote them, but only if we vote. Remember, more people didn't vote for Trump than did. His victory over Vice President Harris was razor thin. Over 1% of people voted for a third candidate, but the largest number of voters, 36%, didn't vote at all. If non-voters become engaged, absolutely anything is possible.
We're in trouble, and we're tired, and some of us might be frightened, but we are not powerless. Dare to hope, dare to speak up, dare to do whatever you can, even if someone else tells you it's insignificant or a waste of time. We need all hands to save our nation, and no effort is wasted.
We don't know why anyone ever thought a felon, an adjudicated rapist, a self-admitted crotch-grabbing predator, a businessman with 6 bankruptcies, a draft dodger, a malignant narcissist, and a twice impeached pandemic mishandling, insurrection, inciting, perfidious con artist would ever be good for the country or for anyone not in the billionaire class. But what's done is done. Now is the time to fix this epic disaster. Resist, assist, persist. And remember these wise words attributed to General Joseph Stilwell, Margaret Atwood, John Wayne, and Moira Rose. Never let the bastards get you down. That's today with the Queer God Squad.
We're looking back at the top LGBTQ news stories of the year from Queer News Tonight. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Don't forget to join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight. We'll see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ+ world, we wish you a good night.